a young John Williams is serving in the Navy, serving the Pacific, and he lands with the 1st Marines at Iwo Jima. He loses half of his battalion. He's laying there on the beach thinking this is his last day on Earth.
When he got handed that card and then proceeded to win that October event, he told us that night, he goes, I was in a very, very dark place in my life. And he goes, that opportunity gave me my first win in 10 years. All right, my friends. So we are back with another episode of Eagle Ops Rally Point Podcast. Here with a very dear friend of mine, Chad Zamarin, and we got the treatment today, the special treatment up here at the 50th floor of Williams Tower in your facility.
Yeah, man. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So, Chad, we'll just get into the meat of it. So I know you're a man of many schedules and short on time, so I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can. Because I know we'd sit here and chit-chat for as long as you'd allow me, that's for sure. For those who don't know, Williams is one of the most recognized names, obviously, here in Tulsa area, in Oklahoma, and in this region. But for the folks who don't know Williams and what Williams does, can you give us a kind of a brief synopsis of Williams and what all Williams Company does here?
Yeah. So here we are. You're in our headquarters here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But Williams has been around for a long time, coming up on almost 120 years as a company. Moved to Tulsa over 100 years ago. Was founded actually in Arkansas, but in the early 1900s moved to headquarters to Tulsa. Actually started in Arkansas building water pipes and sidewalks, and eventually moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and became the largest energy construction company, pipeline construction company internationally. By about mid 1900s, we had built over 100,000 miles of pipeline in 40 different countries around the world, large scale energy infrastructure projects. And today we are one of the largest domestic energy infrastructure companies. We move over a third of the nation's natural gas, which is our country's most important energy resource. Represents almost half of the energy that we use in the United States is powered in one way or another by natural gas. We don't think about it often. We see gasoline, on the roads when we drive by, but a lot of our energy in the United States is powered by natural gas, and Williams has become the largest natural gas midstream infrastructure company. So we operate across the United States. We gather and process gas where it's produced in all of the major supply basins across the country. We deliver it through pipelines to homes, businesses. We also now increasingly deliver it to export terminals, and the United States has become the largest exporter of natural gas. And so we deliver natural gas in the form of liquefied natural gas to friends and allies around the world. And so that's the core kind of business that the company is in today.
Just a small little business.
Yeah, no, our employees, it's really important the work they do. I go around and tell them, unfortunately, you're not hearing about it on the news every day, but, thank an energy worker. It's like, our veterans. Without it, we don't get to enjoy the life that we all sometimes take for granted, the things that we get to enjoy here, in the United States. And so certainly really important what our teams do every day.
Yes, sir. So recently you just picked up a new position here at Williams as the CEO. So how's that role treating you, and what's that kind of transition mean to you personally? You've been here for a few years, and then as obviously we met you as the VP, and you were doing strategic development and that stuff across the country, and now the CEO. So how's that transition treating you, and what's that, this chapter kind of look like for you?
Yeah, no, it's been good. I'm 10 months now into the job. I joined Williams in 2017. I moved to Tulsa. For those that are from Tulsa may remember, Williams was almost acquired in 2016, and would have been tough for the company, would have been tough for the city, would have likely moved the headquarters out of Tulsa. And that was a pretty difficult chapter for the company. Company survived that attempted takeover. I joined as part of the rebuild after that happened. And so I spent the last 8 years kind of cleaning up the portfolio, strengthening the performance of a lot of our commercial functions, business development. We bought several companies over the last 8 years. My teams led those efforts. So it was a fairly natural kind of progression. I mean, my predecessor, Alan, was an incredible leader. He was 14 years as CEO, 40 years with the company. And so, it had really been super important to, kind of where we are today. But we have a great relationship. And so we were able to kind of work, I think, pretty seamlessly through that transition. I mean, the leadership team here is incredibly engaged and excited. We've just finished one of the most important growth periods for the company. The last 5 years, the company grew every year on average 9%, so year over year. And we're a company this year that will earn over $8 billion of earnings, and we're forecasting the next 5 years to be even more impactful. We're forecasting to grow 10% annually every year. And when you think about a company, making that's already that big, those are big growth steps every year. And so it's been good. It's been busy, which is good. I think it was a little easier to get here in 2017. The company, things were pretty tough, so there was only upside. Now our job is to make sure we don't screw it up. So we've got a lot of work to do, but it's been good.
It's a real grind at this point.
We're busy, which is fun.
Well, that's with all of that role and responsibility, I've got some questions for you that I'll definitely want to pick your brain on here in a second. So as we kind of lead into, obviously, we're here at the Eagle Ops Rally Point podcast. You have been around Eagle Ops and been involved with Eagle Ops. And so the question, I know my version of this question, and so I'm going to ask you your version, and I'm going to kind of chat back and forth with you. But how did Williams first get involved with Eagle Ops?
The first way we got involved was you and I meeting one another and, hearing the passion that you have for, veterans and for connecting veterans to the resources that they need to, successfully kind of make their way back into society. And, obviously we invest in people, and I think people that bring passion and that bring that kind of, I think, vision is something that gets me excited. But I will tell a story about Williams. Williams was founded by David and Miller Williams, two brothers, back in 1908, and by the mid 1900s, the company had become, as I mentioned, one of the largest international construction companies in the world. And that was during World War II, and the United States government, many people don't know this story, and it's a great Williams story, but there were German submarines that were sinking oil tankers in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. We were shipping oil from the Gulf of Mexico up into New England, New York, which is where our Navy was building its war efforts to support the Allies in Europe. And literally, there were 7 billion barrels of oil used by the Allies during World War II. 6 billion of those barrels of oil came from the United States. So we were fueling the war efforts in Europe, but our oil tankers were being sunk by German submarines. They were literally hunting the shorelines of America, so much so that there were stories that in the Caribbean that they talked about the Caribbean waves of oil washing ashore because American oil was being sunk by German submarines. The U.S. government called upon industry, and Williams stepped up and built the War Emergency Pipelines, which were two pipelines built from Texas to New York, 3,000 miles of pipeline built in under a year. And that, delivered the energy to the Northeast that we needed. I mean, I've said this, the D-Day invasion never happens. The liberation of Europe never happens if Williams doesn't step up and partner with our government and build the War Emergency Pipelines. And then to take it another step further, while that's happening, a young John Williams, who's the nephew of our founders, is serving in the Navy. He's a company battalion leader for the construction battalion, the Seabees. And so he's in the Navy serving the Pacific, and he lands with the first Marines at Iwo Jima. And there's a great oral history interview with John Williams. He loses half of his battalion on the shores of Iwo Jima. He talks about the fact that, he's laying there on the beach thinking this is his last day on Earth. And he survives, and half his battalion makes it. They rebuild the airstrips, with the Marines there at Iwo Jima, so that we can land our bombers and defend against the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. And John Williams makes his way back to the United States and goes on to become the longest serving CEO of Williams. And so you think about, and by the way, those Navy Seabees, that is a lot of what is kind of the foundation of what today are our Navy SEALs, because these are problem solvers. They knew how to blow shit up, they knew how to build things, they knew how to make things happen. And so we take a lot of that is DNA that exists in our company today. And I try to remind employees about how important that history is. And none of what we do is possible without, the veterans that both, do the hard things every day that we don't oftentimes have to, but also come back and are an important part of our company. And so, I think making sure that we're doing our part to support, I think is important. It's a testament to kind of the history of the company, but also the importance of that capability moving forward.
Right. I had no idea the history, so that is awesome. Yeah. That was a tidbit that I didn't expect, so I appreciate the insight. But it does play into the factor of why Williams gives back so much, specifically to the veteran community. You guys have a employee resource group specifically for veterans, a very active one. And I know that for me and you personally, when we got introduced mutual friends 9 years ago, you blessed us with, I don't know, a little coffee social. We just sat down for coffee one day.
Double shot.
That's right. And I was able to present to you. We'd started Eagle Ops, obviously, a year or two prior to that, and we're kind of doing our rally points. And I presented to you an idea that we had on Freedom Shoots. And this year is our 8th annual Freedom Shoots event, or will be our 8th annual event. And we host a modified 3-gun competition every single month and have for 8 years now, because of you.
Yep.
Now this was, obviously you were working for Williams, but that was personal. Like, you stepped up, and I tell this story all the time. I said, our benefactor who started Eagle Ops, Freedom Shoot specifically, we sat down for coffee. I told you the idea, and you showed up just a few weeks later with 2 brand new ARs and 10,000 rounds and said, this needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember that?
I do.
Well, I tell you, I wanted to get into this because this is something that, obviously, we're going into our 8th year. That means that we've given away 7 custom edition ARs in the championship. And so we have that. We host that event every year. But that event is a modified 3-gun competition in which, just like all of our rally points, it's absolutely free to veterans to come out and join us, right? And that's because of you and giving us that opportunity to start. And it's an idea that I presented to you, and you're like, yeah, I'm in.
Yep.
You personally, I know the Williams side of it. You personally, why did you step up and do that for us?
Yeah, I mean, again, I like the mission. I think what you guys do, you connect directly to the need for people to feel like they're a part of something and can come together and do something. I mean, when you get to see the results of an investment, immediately, I think it's pretty impactful. I mean, we give a lot to a lot of charities, to a lot of organizations, but it is, I think, that much more powerful when you see the results. And you guys do a great job of taking the mission, to the people that need it directly. And so, I think I've seen that. It's an important, I think, connecting people in a way that sometimes they don't even know it's happening, a rally point or a freedom shoot. It sounds like you're just going and doing something fun, but that's a way to bring people together. And the connections that happen, I think, are, you get to see it right there, in the moment. And so I think that resonates with me. I will tell you, I think relationships matter. I think passion matters. I think, doing things that follow through matter, and you guys are really good about taking action. And I think that resonates with me. And so I also like to go out and shoot ARs, so that didn't hurt, But no, I think it really is about seeing the mission in action and seeing the impact, that you guys have immediately. I mean, that's what's great about what you do.
Yes, sir. Well, our mission statement obviously plays exactly what you're saying, connecting relationships, right, to resources to bring our heroes home.
Right.
And so we do that through every single one of our rally points. And obviously one of those rally points happens to be Freedom Shoots. Jessica and I were looking back over last year, and we hosted 358 rally points last year.
Right.
And so 24 counties across northeastern Oklahoma, and looking to expand, obviously, on a regular basis. But we did that with 6 employees. And at this point, hundreds of difference makers that are making those rally points happen, so folks stepping up. And you at Williams, you guys have an ERG, that employee resource group. How do you guys support the veterans specifically on that side of it within Williams? Just create some soundbite, obviously, for you guys in that ERG that you guys host here, and a lot of organizations have ERGs specifically for veterans.
Yeah, you heard me talk about the history of the company and, the importance of both what the company does in partnership with our country, but also what employees have done, and the connection to our veterans and our military is pretty strong. And so our Veterans ERG actually annually, on Veterans Day, they host a meeting and they tell a lot of the history of the importance of kind of the military and those that served, and how they've also then made an impact at Williams. And so I think honoring that legacy is a big part of the company and how we think about doing our work. But also, veterans make up a really important part of our workforce, and not just here in Tulsa. We operate across the country, and we operate in some very difficult environments. I mean, you think about what we do. We move energy through very complex systems across vast distances. It's dangerous work. It's challenging work. We work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Our teams are in the most challenging conditions, in the hottest days of the summer, in the coldest days of the winter. I mean, go to Wamsutter, Wyoming in the middle of winter and go out and, make sure 3,500 wells that we're managing up there are operating every day so that we can send that energy to people and heat their homes. Like, that's what our employees are doing. We've got a really important, all of those employees are incredible, but many are veterans and veterans' family members. And, those are the people that make this happen. And so that's why it's a really important part of the company. Our employee resource groups are really important. They're the grassroots. We don't have, we're not driving from the top. We really are encouraging our employees to kind of pick up what's important to them, what matters to them, and represent that across the company. And so, the Veterans ERG is a really important, I think, vehicle for making sure that veterans have a rally point kind of inside of Williams, and they've got a place where they can come and be a part of a community, but also open that up and share it with the rest of the workforce.
Everything on our rally points is just that, right? We say that we're bringing veterans in. Like I tell veterans all the time is, what's the cost of admission? It's to show up, right? Just come and join us. The connection on that side of it, no matter what the event is, just come and join us and be around like-minded, like-experienced individuals. Like you said, it's just you build that community, and from that community, all those connections and resources can happen, right? We're just one of those resources. We're one of the opportunities with the rally points that we create. And so we create a ton of those, kind of like you guys, where you do the ERGs, you're doing it because an employee enjoys doing something and wants to give back to the community. Well, they start up a group. Obviously, veterans is a very, near and dear one to our heart as well as yours, to say, hey, let's get those folks together because they're going to have some built-in camaraderie and help each other out, and then make us all stronger, make that community stronger. So one of the focuses, obviously, with Eagle Ops primarily is how we approach suicide prevention, and we are very much upstream. So we're trying to create an opportunity to make connection, relationship, so that before the crisis ever happens, right? So stopping suicide before we ever get to that level. So our rally points are really focused on that. From a corporate perspective, what does it mean to support that kind of preventative work?
Yeah, and this is, I know it's a huge issue. We've talked a lot about, you and I, about veterans and the struggles that we've seen and the suicide rates being what they are. Interestingly, we see that in construction. These are areas where people don't oftentimes, there's a stigma around talking about mental health and, addressing issues. And so it's really important that we make sure that people understand that they need to reach out, that they can reach out, that they should reach out, that there are other people struggling with the same issues that they are. Unfortunately, our society, we see it within our company. Our society has made it difficult, especially if you think about men that are in the veteran community. We have the same issue with our veteran workforce, but also, the guys that work out in the field in construction and in operations and in technical roles. Those are supposed to be the tough, people that deal with their issues on their own. And we know that's when that isolation happens, that's what leads to, really bad things happening, including suicide. And so we have really tried hard within Williams, and it's one of the reasons why we also really appreciate the partnership that we have with Eagle Ops, but making sure that we can talk to our employees about mental health, making sure that our employees understand that there are resources, but also that this is not weakness. This is something that people deal with, and we're here to help. But that is a difficult stigma to overcome and to get people, which is why I love what you all do. Some people don't even know it's happening when they're coming together and, being a part of a community. But that's the challenge we all have to overcome. And so it's something we work on as a company, but I tell you, as an industry, we're dealing with it as well, because we've got those statistics that are, terrible and unfortunate in the veteran community. We actually see higher rates of suicide in heavy kind of construction and labor industries and workforces like we have across our company. And so it's a big focus area for us. But it's not one that you solve. You've got to keep doing the work every day. And you really, continuing to come up with ways to connect with people and make them understand they're not alone. And it's not weakness if you're asking for help or you're reaching out.
Well, that's one thing that unique on that one. I say this all the time, and this comes from true data, is loneliness and isolation is the number one and number two factors that leads to suicidal ideations and obviously ultimately going that route. But loneliness and isolation, that's the number one, number two factor across the board, not just veterans, all categories. Loneliness and isolation. And so obviously with our rally points, it's one of the things, like you said, that we're creating those rally points so that we can make the connection and relationship so that when you are struggling, that you're more likely to reach out to someone who you have some rapport with, some camaraderie. And hey, brother, hey, sister, man, I'm struggling with this, right? Because you don't always see it. Right. I talk about this all the time. We can be over at the BOK Arena with 10,000 people around us and still be lonely and isolated. I've got people everywhere, but not being connected, not feeling connected to those folks and having someone to rely on. Obviously, in the military-wise, we had to rely on each other to keep ourselves alive. Like, we didn't do anything in the military. Training to combat and everything in between, we always had battle buddies. And so I say that we can't recreate boot camp and can't recreate combat, but I can do fun stuff. Yeah. And we can start that rapport and relationship from that. And it might not be through the blood, sweat, and tears like we built in the military, but it's strong enough to make a connection to say, hey, brother, I'm struggling with something, and that's really our focus, and so I'm going to backtrack just a second here. So speaking of freedom shoots, I'm going to try to get into your feelers for a second because I likely will get here. Speaking about the opportunity that you gave us to start freedom shoots. So just before that very first event, or during that very first event, actually the October. So we started it in January 8 years ago, right? And so January, we did a freedom shoots, and we do one every single month. Well, in September timeframe, there was an event here in town called Scott's Fest. And one of our difference makers, so we don't have volunteers, as you know, we have difference makers, had one of our Reach One More oath cards, right? And they happened to be at the Scott's Fest event and saw another veteran that had a beret on that was in the same unit, Army unit, as he was in years prior, right? And he hands the veteran one of our Reach One More cards, and tells him about Freedom Shoots. Okay, so this is September timeframe. And they're at the event, and they chit-chat a little bit about the unit, that kind of stuff, and he hands him a card. That veteran shows up at Freedom Shoots. He registers and shows up, right? So everything we do is cost of admission, just show up, right? And so he shows up, and he ends up winning the event, right? This is October 8 years ago, right? And so he wins the event, and I mean by the hair on his head wins the event. It was 0.02 of a second difference. Like, we had a guy that had competed throughout the months, and like he was definitely going to win. Uniquely, his name is Michael Jordan, but it was unique name. Yeah. Awesome dude, another Army veteran. But he was definitely the guy to beat, right? And so Jeremiah shows up, and not to tell too much of Jeremiah's story, but Jeremiah was in a situation where he had come back. He'd been a few years out of the Army, but he's Purple Heart. He still has shrapnel on his backside, literally in his back, from a grenade that he saved, trying to save his buddies. He was on a rooftop, and they tossed a grenade up, and instead of diving on the grenade, he dove against his buddies, and he took the brunt of it in his back, right? Well, when this difference maker gave Jeremiah that card in September and told him about the Freedom Shoots, obviously a veteran interested in shooting, he signs up and he shows up. He wins the event, and at that time he was in not very good physical shape, and he speaks about this now. So much so that he was about 100 plus pounds overweight and just in a bad place and time in his life. And he wins that event. And that opens the door for him to come back for championship, because all the winners of the 10 months get brought back for the championship to compete for the custom edition AR, right? And so year number 1, he comes back, and darn if he doesn't win the championship, right? Again, by a smidgen. I mean, it was really close. And so he wins and wins. Now, looking at him, he knew that he was overweight, the whole nine, but man, he was a crack shot. Super, very good as far as shooting wise. So he wins. So now fast forward about 3 years, and we're sitting in a fire pit one night, and he goes, "Hey Shep, I want to tell my story tonight." And about an hour and a half later, there's not a dry eye around the fire pit, and he's telling a story, obviously from combat all the way through. But the significance specifically for you and Freedom Shoots is when he got handed that card and then proceeded to win that October event. He told us that night, he goes, "I was in a very, very dark place in my life." And he goes, that opportunity gave me my first win in 10 years. And he goes, then I had a purpose to make it to the next one, because now I've got a Freedom Shoots that I've got to go to for championship, right? Now I've got a reason to be here to go to the next one. And he wins again. Yep. That trajectory of those 2 wins in his life, he tells an amazing story on the side of it that it saved his life. He said, "I was in one of the darkest points of my life, and because of your event, I was able to turn the tide." Now, I said, fast forward 3 years. Fast forward just a year, he lost over 100 pounds. And at that event, he was really close to being engaged. And now I can honestly tell you, a few years after that, he is now one of our primary mission coordinators, telling every veteran that he can. He's happily married right now. He bought his brand new, he's got a new home with, 50-something acres, and he's got a nice plot of land, and completely changed his life. Yeah. So something that you inadvertently said, "Hey, this needs to happen because of your heart," and obviously our drive to make sure that it happens, has changed and impacted not one, but every single veteran that he comes in contact from and has come in contact with over the last 8 years. It changed his life, his family's life, and everyone that he comes in contact with. But that's because of you.
Hey, that's incredible. I mean, frankly, Shep, what I do is pretty easy. I mean, I give you, and it's one of the things that is the message that I want to convey. I mean, we are lucky that people are willing to do the hard things of serving, our country and, going out on the front lines and, risking their lives for us, and then coming back and we, knowing that, the military is effectively designed to make it hard to come back. It's unfortunately, that's not, and so, and I think the thing that you do well and that we need to continue to do is invite non-military people and families into the circle, because that's hard. Oftentimes people that didn't serve, and I'm one of them, don't know if you can be a part of that community. You talk about patriots that just want to help and support. Yeah. I think creating that ability to do even a small part and feel like you're contributing, because frankly, we owe that to our service members, but it is a community that is from the outside sometimes hard to become involved in, because a lot of people frankly may not feel like they've earned the right to be a part of the community. But, frankly, giving a little bit of resources, that's easy. And I think the more you guys open up that community for others and make it available, I think that's what, should be the message. Like, the veteran community is an extension of our community as a whole, right? And that's how we if you didn't serve, that's okay. You can still support our veterans, right? And you can be a part of that community. And I think that's what I like about, the relationship that I have with you and with Eagle Ops is I didn't earn the veterans label. I haven't earned that. I didn't do that. And what I do to support, frankly, is small and easy, but it's at least a way to be a part of, helping the community. And so, I think that's the way we need to continue. And I think you guys do a really good job of it, because I can tell you that, too often, and it's like our ERGs, we've got to be careful that we don't create communities that people think they can't be a part of. Those need to be actually windows into the community for everyone to be a part of and support. And I think that you guys do a really good job with that. And so, I think that's a great story, and it's incredible. And you guys are doing it every day. My part is relatively small. I appreciate you guys do the hard work.
I assure you, it's not small at all. Because without you, we wouldn't be able to do it. And folks like yourself. And the unique thing about our organization on that side, you actually, hit it nail on the head here, that everything we do is focused on veterans, service members, and their families. But we welcome all to every one of our events. All patriots are welcome. And if there's a cost of an event, so for example, like I was telling you that we're out at Skiatook Lake on Wednesday. Wake Surf Wednesdays is an event that we created to bring veterans and their family, and I get to teach literally veterans or whoever shows up how to wake surf, right? We've got an amazing partnership with another corporate sponsor out there with 918 Boats, and they take us out and we do wake surfing. And so I get to coach wake surfing. It's amazing. But we get patriots, what we call difference makers, that want to give back and be involved. And they always ask, hey, how can I join? How can I be involved? Well, number one, show up. Number two, cost of admission for you as a patriot to show up to our rally points, because that there's going to be an event where there's some cost involved, i.e. I'm going out on a $300,000 boat, someone's paying for something there, right? And so gas, fuel, things, that kind of that stuff. I say, to the patriots that want to come join us, cost of admission for you in showing up is to bring a battle buddy, bring a veteran with you. You bring a veteran, then you've reached one more, that's your cost of admission. Yep. And so outside of that, if it's just our fire pit nights or something like that, we welcome all. If you support or a family member of a veteran or have a family member, and you support veterans, we tell you, just come and join us. Yep. Just show up, just like the veterans. Because we know, like you, we understand that there is so many more of you than there are of us, that how am I going to connect with those veterans that are not connected? Well, because you have a relationship with them, you can drag them sometimes, or just mention it, say, hey, do you know about this group? They're shooting and hunting and fishing and hiking, biking, riding, wake surfing. They do all kinds of stuff. Yep. If you're interested in any of those, just come and join them. So one of the I know you're a numbers guy because, it's your kind of nature to be a numbers guy with what you do.
A polite way of saying I'm a nerd.
No, sir, not at all. I guess I would be called this term because I'm the same way. But Eagle Ops has a very big goal, and that is to reach all 280. Obviously, this number fluctuates. 285,000 veterans in the state of Oklahoma. And so, with your presence, obviously Williams and all the employees and all the areas that you guys cover, when you hear that number, from kind of the private sector, I need from a CEO and a founder of an organization coming from another CEO, I'm always looking for guidance on that's a big number, right? And thinking of how do you go about reaching those kind of numbers? How do I reach all of those? And I'm always looking for, tidbits of information. Obviously, we've got our rally points is one way and creating social events, but as another CEO speaking to a CEO, can you give me any insight into, hey, when you think about 285,000 folks in a pretty big area, man, give me some insight and your thoughts on how would I go about, reaching those folks?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, we spend a lot of time on this as a company, not specifically on the veterans issue, but on communication, because what we do is tough. We build infrastructure in places that are, and it's difficult infrastructure. We build through people's backyards. We build through neighborhoods and communities, and oftentimes in places that maybe, appreciate the end result, but don't want you there. So we have to get out and communicate and tell our story and be a part of the community. The challenge is, we're competing for people's attention, and that's hard, right? I mean, you guys have a good brand. You've got a good way of, I think, communicating. You've got to make messaging simple. You've got to make it effective. You've got to make sure that you're kind of catching people's attention with a message that they can understand. And I think, there are lots of ways to do that. I think in the state of Oklahoma in particular, I mean, obviously, the good news is, and this is one of the reasons why you'll see Williams put a lot of investment into Tulsa, into Oklahoma, we can move the needle here. Like, that's a big number, but we're not talking about, city of Tulsa. I came from Houston when I moved to Tulsa. I mean, that's a hard place to get noticed because it's massive, right? And even as a company of our size, it's hard to have a very powerful reach just because there are so many other competing interests in a city and in a state as large as, Texas, for example. So the good news is in Oklahoma, it is doable. Those are big numbers, but they're not, impossible numbers. And so I think the message there is what you are doing, you've got to keep doing. I mean, the fact that you have been able to create relationships with, a representative like Kevin Hearn, who is, hopefully, I think going to likely be our next senator, having relationships. We talked about my predecessor, Alan Armstrong, who's the currently appointed senator. We've got obviously an important race going on for the next governor. I think making sure that our elected officials understand this issue and we're working those channels is really important. I think continuing to increase the partnership with companies like ours. I mean, we unfortunately, our headquarters is really important. Oklahoma is not actually our largest operating state. So our reach out into the state is not as broad as it is obviously here in Tulsa. So we've got a great network. I mean, obviously we've got, over 1,000 employees here in Tulsa, but that connects us to all their families and their friends. Like we can get the message out through those channels. But I think increasingly, partnering with those companies that can help create those connections. We also talk about the fact that we're not a retail company. So people, Williams is a great name. People in Tulsa kind of know the company. It's got a great story, but we're not a retail company. You don't see us on the corner. We're not selling gas at a corner station. We're not on the shelf of a Walmart. So people don't necessarily know who we are. So I think making sure you're finding as much as you can access to where businesses and people have that retail connection. We spend time thinking about that. How do we make sure, okay, we're not touching, you think about, we deliver energy that goes to literally over 100 million people in this country, and they don't know that it came from us. They tend to know their utility. You think about who they get their interaction with. Can we use those connections, to get on the radar of someone. I it's actually one thing that's a little unfortunate is we no longer get like our utility bills in the mail, but I used to, tell the team, like, let's go to our utility customers and let's put a little note inside the monthly bill so that we're getting directly to the end, customer. I think the main message that I'd give is it's like anything else. You've got to keep working it. It's not something you do and it's done. You've just got to keep working it. And, we've got an incredible communications team here at Williams. I think we do it better than, any of our peers, but I tell you, it is hard work. I mean, you've got people's attention spans are short and there's a lot of content out there that you're competing with. And so you just got to keep it.
As we're creating one today, we're trying to keep up with the masses. Yeah. Absolutely. So speaking of CEO stuff, so if you're sitting across from another CEO that might be on the fence about investing with, veteran nonprofits. I mean, obviously I'm a little biased, so I'm not but what would you tell them?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing, I told you the story about John Williams and, we first, like, veterans make up virtually in every company. Oftentimes people don't realize it, but at Williams, our veterans population is over 10% of the workforce. Right. And, that, and I'm told the story. And then you think about veterans family members. I mean, there are, even more, obviously large numbers of our workforce have connections to veterans through their families. And, we need problem solvers. We need people that understand how to work on a team. They understand discipline, but also creativity and innovation. Like, those are the things I talk about. John Williams having been a CB. I mean, and when he came back to Williams, his risk tolerance was, and his the things that the company did were informed by the experiences that he had. And Alan, my predecessor, will tell you, like, there were times where John Williams would say, Alan, you're getting all worked up and worried about this. Like, no one's going to die. This isn't like, I've seen worse. Like, this is not that bad. We will be okay. Having some of that perspective.
Dude, you're not getting shot at.
Yeah, right. Having that perspective is helpful. So I think the first thing is veterans make up a really important part of our workforce, and we can learn a lot from what they bring to, to the company. But also we need to understand some of the unique issues that veterans deal with. And I think that's the other side of that I think is really important. And so that's the first reason why you want to invest. I mean, the more, I think, basic reason is, like, I think our employees want to be proud of the companies that they work for. And I think, I always wanted to believe that the companies that I worked for kind of supported the right things. And I think, this is just one of those fundamental things. Like, you should support our military. You should support our veterans. These are the people that are keeping us safe every day, making the ultimate sacrifice that oftentimes, those of us that don't have to take for granted. And so, I get a sense of pride knowing that our company is investing in it, but I also know our employees feel that too. And so, I'd say to any leader of any organization, like, your people want to feel good about the work that they do. They want to believe in the company and the leaders that they work for. And so make sure you're supporting the right things. And this is like a no-brainer. This should be pretty obvious. And so that's how I think about it.
Good deal. Love it. That'll be a good one. I appreciate the insight for sure. What would you want other business leaders in Tulsa and even Oklahoma to understand about why this partnership, Eagle Ops partnership, matters to Williams?
Yeah.
We kind of hit on it a little bit, but
yeah, look, I think it's a really important, I've walked the Veterans Parade with you pretty much every year, since we've gotten to know each other. We carry, we started with the Honor Mile, and we carry the images of soldiers that have, fallen. Our employees get to do that. It's an important, I think, reminder of how important just community is and our country. And, we are so bombarded with all of the drama and conflict and you pick up the news and you would think that, everybody, no one gets along anymore and no one's pulling together. But I think it's a great relationship that demonstrates how we all pull together. And I said it to you earlier, I think it's really important to create community and to create vehicles that broaden the community. And too often, I think people don't understand, hey, I'm not a veteran, so I'm not part of the veterans community. Like, you live in a country that, is made possible because of those that serve. You are a part of that community, and creating that, showing that you and I can walk down the street together. I didn't serve, you did, but we can come together and do things as a team, I think is why it's so important, and why I think it works so well. And our employees feel that. And I hear it all the time. They really see, on display their ability to support in a way that oftentimes, they don't understand. They don't see opportunities to do that. And so I think it works really well.
I think on that side of it, thinking about the difference makers, obviously we don't have volunteers at Eagle Ops, we have difference makers, right? Community difference makers. And then the next evolution of difference makers for us is our mission coordinators, the guys that are physically showing up at the rally point and making sure those events are happening for other veterans and their families. But that thought process there, it's not always about, showing up and donating. Your time is enough, right? Just putting in some time and effort. Hey, how do I help out? Well, show up, just come and join us and be involved. Honestly, I say this to all patriots. We don't have a whole lot of difference maker opportunities that we do. And we create some, don't get me wrong, like some of them. But most of our rally points are pretty simple. They're events. We're having fun. We're playing softball or something. Just come and join us. And folks don't realize that, hey, how do I get involved? I just asked you to show up. Because if you show up, you're going to then learn, like you have over time, our heart, our true passion, and our mission. And then guess what you're going to do the next time you come in front of a veteran? If you don't already know a veteran, you're going to speak to that, right? Our number one mission in this organization is reaching one more veteran. One more. That's it. So if you can help us as a patriot reach one more, connect to one more veteran, one more family member that will help a veteran, then we're solving our mission. And so you want to know how to be able to give back to the veteran community, just show up, and put in a little time and effort and learn about that community and how you can help. Sometimes it's literally just showing up and chatting with somebody.
I think making it that easy is the power of kind of what you guys do, and continuing to broaden that invitation and create even a bigger community. Because like you said, a lot of times the impact that you will then have, you may not even ever see it. It's somebody out there now who's carrying a message of support, who understands how somebody else is feeling, what they deal with, what their struggles are. A leader that goes back to their company and, thinks about their veteran community and how they can support veterans' families. I mean, I think that people understanding the impact that it has. And I mean, I think you and Jessica does a great job. I mean, it's not just veterans that struggle. I mean, veterans' families make a huge sacrifice. And I think, me spending time with you, learning more about that has been helpful to understand that this is, that's as an important community to support as it is, those that actually serve, because they're making a big sacrifice and they're dealing with the challenges that come with that. And so, I think continuing to broaden that community is what is the power of what you guys are doing. And so, definitely keep it up.
I appreciate it, brother. So this is actually going to finalize our episode with Mr. Chad Zamarin, the CEO of Williams. Man, personal friend and I call you our benefactor for Freedom Shoots. You truly started that mission for us and gave us the opportunity to continue that mission. And still today, you still support it. And we certainly appreciate you and Williams and everything that the company does. And man, I don't have the words to be able to say how much it's meant to us over the last 8 years that you guys have been involved and plugged in. So I certainly appreciate you.
Appreciate what you do.
Absolutely.
If you're a business owner, if you're a leader, if you're a community leader, elected official, if you want to support our veterans community, I strongly encourage you to support Eagle Ops. You can't find a better place to invest your time, your resources, hopefully your money to support our veterans and our veterans community. Strongly support, strongly endorse, you learning more about Eagle Ops and supporting our veterans through Eagle Ops.
All right, folks, this is going to wrap up this episode of the Eagle Ops Rally Point podcast. Like and subscribe at all of the podcast places that you subscribe to. And I always mess this one up. That always gets me on this one.